I took the fall for my brother and ended up serving 2 years in prison. While inside, I unexpectedly saved the daughter of the richest man in town. As a token of gratitude, she gave me $100 million. After my release, the first thing I did was to call my father, eager to surprise him. But as soon as he heard my voice, he hung up. I thought something terrible had happened at home and rushed back. Just as I reached the door, I overheard my brother's wife, Greta Kessler, complaining, of all days, she had to get out today, making me skip my prenatal check pet up just to rush and transfer the property. My mother replied, "It's for your own good. With her prison record, finding a job will be tough, and getting married will be even tougher. She might just end up staying here and fighting you for the house." Greta snorted. "Let her rent a place. I'm not living with an ex-pencun." To their conversation felt like a punch to the gut. My heart ached. Legs, my mom, the one who used to call me her little sweetheart. Had Greta always said she saw me as her own sister? How did everything change so suddenly? The door before me was the one I had dreamt about for 2 long years, but now, standing in front of it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. After taking a moment to compose myself, I finally knocked. My mother, Malin Kessler, opened the door looking surprised. "Nina, you were back. I was just about to send your dad to pick you up." She gave me a once peasant over and forced a concerned look. "You've lost weight over these 2 years. It must have been tough. If only I hadn't overheard their conversation. If only her concern had been genuine, how wonderful that would be." I managed a bittersweet smile. "No worries. Taxes are convenient now." With that, I stepped inside. Greta immediately rushed over and sprayed me with alcohol until the bottle was empty. Only then did she look at me. "Done it, take it the wrong way. I'm just cleansing you of bad luck." She told me not to overthink, but her disdain was written all over her face. I knew Greta despised me for being an ex-convict, but she must have forgotten I went to prison for her and my brother James Kessler. Without saying a word, I walked straight to my room. When I opened the door, I found it filled with clutter, and none of my belongings were in sight. Trudy to belongings were in sight. Tuni to Molny, I asked. "Mom, what happened here?" She hesitated, looking uncomfortable. "You've been gone for so long, and the house is small with lots of stuff, so we stored everything in your room." And my things, I pressed Mullining, looked down. Her guilt was evident. "Sold or thrown away, they're all gone." My heart sank again. "Mom, I was in prison, not dead. Was it necessary to clear out all my things?" When my father, Seamus Kessler, heard this from the sofa, he casually said, "Nina, Greta is 5 months pregnant and needs space for baby stuff. The house is cramped. Your things weren't needed anymore, so we got rid of them." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. My father used to love organizing my things, saying he wanted to create a collection of my most meaningful belongings to give me as a wedding gift someday. Why didn't he care that they were all gone now? "Where am I supposed to stay?" I asked. Mullen pulled out $200 and tossed it on the table carelessly as if she were giving money to a beggar. "Here, take this. Find a motel or rent a place. It's up to you." "What about James? Does he feel the same way?" Just then, my brother James Kessler emerged from the bathroom. Without hesitation, he said, "Nina, you were my sister. Of course I am on your side. If you want to stay here, I will clear the room for you." It seemed James still cared about me. I nodded with relief. "Serum, I will stay for a while." But as soon as I said that, James' expression froze. He stood there looking at me but made no move to clean the room. I stared back, puzzled at this time. Greta walked up to me, her voice sharp. "Yanina, have you lost your mind in prison? How can you be so inconsiderate? Kate, you see how cramped the house is? Even if we clear out the room, it should be for the baby. You are an adult now. How can you shamelessly insist on staying here? Have some sense?" I felt sorrowful and replied hoarsely, "Greta, this is my home base. It's normal for me to stay for a few days. Your home? This house is under James' name now. He's married and you're 30 years old." Her disdain was no longer hidden. Her eyes filled with contempt. I looked at James. He pressed his lips together, looking everywhere but at me. I turned to my mother, but she just stared back, her expression dark, offering no support. My father puffed away on his cigarette, acting as if none of this concerned him. There I stood, awkward and helpless, realizing their rush to property transfer wasn't just to avoid a potential dispute. They wanted to use it as an excuse to kick me out. My heart ached with 1,000 tiny stings. Looking at my family, I asked incredulously, "Did I do something wrong? Why have you all changed so suddenly?" For the first time, I felt like an outsider in my own home. Before I went to prison, everyone treated me well. Why had everything changed the moment I was released? Without hesitation, Greta responded, "Yanina, before you could make money and support the family, so we all got along. But now you are just an ex-benjican. Finding a decent job or a husband will be nearly impossible. In your situation, what can you do but leech off us? Why should we still treat you well?" My heart sank and I asked painfully, "So, because I can no longer useful and might be a burden, you don't care about me anymore?" "Nina, it's not our fault." Molly looked at me and finally said, "Another mouth to feed is not something we can afford. You were better off finding a place to rent and taking care of yourself instead of being a burden to us." "I'm a burden." I looked at Molly with a pained expression. "Mom, you were the ones who begged me in tears to take the fall for James. You said if I did, I'd be the savior of this family, and you prepay me no matter what. Now I just got out and haven't even had a sip of water at home, and suddenly I'm a burden. I've given so much for this family. I handed over all my wages, contributed to buying this house, and even served 2 years in prison for James Lynch that entitle me to a room in my own home." My voice was hoarse and I felt utterly wronged. James said, "Nina, I know you were upset, but do you think it was easy for us these past 2 years? Having a convict in the family brought shame on all of us. People point and whisper wherever we go. Who knows what people will say about us if you stay here? Can't you think about us for once?" The brother I sacrificed everything to protect finally revealed his true feelings. To him, I was now just a burden, the reason for their shame. All my sacrifices were reduced to a joke. I looked at him with deep disappointment and said coldly, "James Kessler, don't forget, the one who should have been a convict is you. The one who shamed the family is you. If you really cared about the family's reputation, you should have confessed from the start. Instead, you let me take the fall, and now you have the audacity to blame me for not thinking about you. 2 years ago, James and Greta were speeding and driving in the wrong direction with my car when they hit and killed someone. My parents came to me immediately. They said James had a weak heart and had finally managed to get married. If he went to prison, not only would he lose his marriage, but his life might be at risk. They cried and begged me to take the blame for him. They promised that the whole family would repay me generously once I got out. I didn't do it for any reward. I did it out of love for my parents and genuine care for my brother. I sacrificed myself, went to prison for him, sold my car, drained my savings, lost my job, paid the compensation, and endured all the insults. But I never expected my wholehearted sacrifice to be met with utter betrayal and contempt. I don't understand, but blood supposed to be thicker than water? Why does family loyalty become so insignificant when faced obsessed with personal gain. James heard my words and his face turned dark with displeasure. He retorted, I've already thanked you for taking the fall. What more do you want from me? This house is under my name now, and Greta will give birth in a few months. There is not enough room. You need to move out. We can afford to support an idler. In his eyes, 2 years in prison for him was worth only a single thank you. Asking for more made me the unreasonable one. Mullen chimed in. Nina, don't you get it? A woman's fate is to marry and have children, not live off her family. We were hoping to marry you off to a good man and get some money, but now, as an ex-Penza convict, no one will want you. Letting you stay here is already us, considering old time's sake, Greta added. What mean you've been to prison? You've been to prison, so you will be poor forever. If we let you stay, you would drain us dry. Greta rubbed her belly and spoke mercilessly. Seamus put out his cigarette and said coldly, Janina, you are grown up now. It's time you understood the importance of contributing to the family instead of causing trouble. Each of their words felt like a sharp knife piercing my heart. Despite my overwhelming disappointment, my eyes welled up. Hoarsely, no wonder you never visited me once during my 2 years in prison. I thought you were just too busy to see me, but now I see you only saw me as a moneymaker. You kicked me to the curb without hesitation the moment I couldn't make money anymore. I tilted my head back, fighting to hold back my tears. Then I asked, so you were all determined to kick me out today? Yes, Seamus replied without hesitation. Mullane, James, and Greta all looked equally resolute. Clearly, there was no room for negotiation. I saw no trace of affection in their eyes. I nodded, my heart completely broken. From today, we were done, and I hope you won't regret it. I finally saw them for what they were. These people I would longed for during my 2 years in prison didn't deserve my sacrifices. The 100 million I had planned to share with them would now remain with me. Without another word, I walked out the door, not looking back. Behind the door, I heard Greta's resentful roar. You think too highly of yourself. What's there to regret to cut ties with a broke ex-Penza convict like you? If we let you stay here and mooch off us, that's when you'd really regret it. In that heartless home, I wandered the streets alone for a long time before finally finding a hotel to stay in. Lying on the bed, I stared at the 9 figure balance in my bank account. Lost in thought, I used to believe I lived in a very happy family. My father patiently comforted and advised me when I faced difficulties at work. My mother would bring my favorite soup to my office when I worked late. My brother would come to pick me up from work when it rained. I felt like the cherished little princess of the family. I was always puzzled whenever I saw stories online about parents favoring sons over daughters. How could such families exist? How could parents not love their daughters? But now I finally grasped that awful feeling of helplessness and disappointment. I realized I had always been part of such a family. All the love I had felt was conditional based on my usefulness. To them, I was more like an investment. Their love was the cost, and my money was the return. So the gifts of fate had always come with a hidden price. When I could make money and ensure a comfortable life for everyone, they smiled warmly at me. But now they saw me as an ex-Penza convict who couldn't find a job with no money and no value. Their love had vanished completely. Little did they know this ex-Penza had 100 million in her account. I couldn't help but feel a bit excited, wondering how they react when the daughter they despised most stood at the pinnacle of success one day. The next day, I arrived at a hotel in the city center. This wasn't just any hotel. It was a top 10-notch, sprawling establishment that catered to dining, lodging, banquets, and even business activities. It had 8 floors and occupied an entire building. The location, surroundings, and foot traffic were all excellent. Before I went to prison, I worked as a hotel lobby manager. Namely, I wanted to return to my old profession, only this time not as a manager, but as the owner. I negotiated with the hotel's owner for several hours and eventually bought the hotel from him. I took over management that very day. From then on, I lived and ate at the Hotel Aid, seizing every moment to learn and develop new management and operational strategies. Under my leadership, the hotel's business flourished, becoming so popular that it was almost impossible to get a size reservation. I soon became a bona fide wealthy woman in the city. One evening, 6 months later, while inspecting the dining department, I overheard James' room. This info was so popular I had to book my son Wednesday husband's celebration, 2 months in builds and devants, just to get a table. I've heard that only the Kriplum de la Cretivon get to dine here. James, you made it eye-winging us to such a lavish place. Ali Ainishan rose in place and realized James had our parents and a bunch of fuzzletives to this private room for his torn son's 1/10th celebration. Truly, Maureen was busy showing off by recording videos on her phone. My face appeared in the frame when her camera panned to the door. Yanina, what are you doing here? Maureen put down her phone and frowned at me. Upon hearing this, everyone in the room turned their gaze towards me standing at the doorway. Yanina, have you no shame? You knew we were having a banquet here today and followed us just to scrounge a meal. Greta rushed over and scolded me as if I were the plague. Who said I was here to scrounge for food? I replied calmly. What are you here for if you are not here to scrounge begging? This is a high-burdened place reserved for the wealthy. If you were hungry, go dig through the trash outside. That's where you belong, she said, crossing her arms and looking at me with utter disdain. The other relatives also frowned and glared at me, their expressions filled with disgust as if I were an annoying fly. James spoke up too clearly, unhappy. Yanina, when you said you wanted to cut ties with us, I thought you had some backbone. But now you've stooped to follow us for a free meal. It's really disgusting. Before I could respond, Seamus chimed in. Have you forgotten how? Could you throw away your dignity for a meal? I looked at them and sneered. It's just a meal. It doesn't matter to me. You are really something, aren't you? Sour grapes, huh? As if you, a penniless ex-Bergkin, could ever afford a meal here, even if you worked your whole life, Greta sneered. You were just putting on a brave face now that you see we're not welcoming you, pretending you don't care. Greta continued her snide remarks. Melanie also looked at me with disdain. Yanina, you need to know your place. This isn't somewhere you belong. Just leave and stop embarrassing yourself. Today is my son 1 Asian month celebration. Your presence here will only bring bad luck to him. I don't want my son to be poor his whole life. Get out. Greta's hostility was relentless. I met her gaze and said coldly, if you don't want to see me, you can leave yourself. This was my territory and I had no intention of indulging her. Well, aren't you something, Janina? No skills but plenty of attitude? This high-end hotel is no place for a broke ex-Pescan like you. Get out, get out, get out. Greta was furious, grabbing my collar and trying to drag me out. Don't touch me. I forcefully shrugged off her hand, causing her to stumble and nearly fall. Quit me. Without a word, James stepped forward and slapped me hard across the face. Janina, you are no longer the lobby manager earning tens of thousands a month. Now you're just a worthless nobody. Did you really think we had put up with you? He then shouted down the hallway. Security. security. Where's security? Harrow this. A group of security guards quickly rushed over. James pointed at me and barked at the security guards. How? Can you let just anyone in here? Get this beggar woman out of here immediately. The head of security approached James and asked politely, Sir, what is the problem? James pointed at me again. This woman is a penniless beggar trying to scrounge a meal here. Get her out. The security chief looked at me and said coldly, Markham, please leave. I usually kept a low profile, rarely revealing my status as the hotel owner, even though I lived and dined here. Only the upper management knew who I was. Seeing the head of security try to throw me out so quickly, I fixed him with a stern gaze and said, Is this how you handle situations, Daunt? You know the hotel's policy? We should not judge anyone by their appearance or offend any guest. A flicker of uncertainty crossed the security chief's eyes. He looked at me uneasily, no longer daring to say anything. Greta, seeing this, became anxious. Don't let her fool you. She's just a broke ex-penscon. Far her out. Sorry, madam, we don't eject any guests without cause. The security chief firmly refused Greta's demand this time. What are you security guys doing then? A factie scared off by a few words from her. James shouted at the guards, then turned to me again. Yanina, don't think you can bluff your way out of this. I know the hotel manager here. One call from me and you were out. With that, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Mr. Feldman, it's James. Youth, and the call ended abruptly with a cold response, leaving James standing awkwardly with his phone. I sneered and said calmly, You want to speak to Mr. Feldman? Let me help you. I took out my phone and called Mr. Feldman. Come to private room 777 within 3 minutes. Janina, are you out of your mind? You're a broke ex-penscon. Pitar, pretend to be someone important here. We know exactly what kind of person you are. Is there any need to put on this act? James sneered at me. The other relatives looked at me like I was a clown, their faces filled with mockery and disgust. Maloney wiped the sweat from her forehead and said in embarrassment, This is so humiliating. How did I raise a daughter like this? Seamus also looked exasperated. You were making a fool of yourself and your family. Why keep me? Some people are so poor they've lost their minds and developed delusions. James couldn't even get Mr. Feldman here, and you think you can? It's ridiculous, Greta scoffed, her tone dripping with contempt. She looked at me as if even acknowledging my existence was beneath her. But just as she finished speaking, a middle-aged man in a suit arrived at our side. Mr. Feldman, you are here. Seeing the man, James immediately turned into an obsequious flatterer, rushing to greet him with a sycophantic smile. He then pointed at me and said indignantly, I was just about to tell you this woman is a broke nobody trying to crash our banquet. You should get her thrown out before she brings down the hotel's reputation. Shut up. Miss Kessler is the hotel's chair. Lucius Feldman's stern shout cut off James' rant mid-ancient sentence. Then Lucius walked over to me, bowing respectfully. Miss Kessler, what can I do for you, chair? James, who had been so arrogant moments before, was suddenly dumbfounded. He looked at me, then at Lucius, incredulous. Mr. Feldman, you must be mistaken. She's just a worthless ex-con. How could she possibly be the chair of your hotel? Lucius glared at James and said firmly, James, if you disrespect the chair again, I won't be so easy on you. That shut James up. My parents, Greta, and all my relatives were utterly dumbfounded. They looked at me with eyes full of shock, as if their entire world had just been turned upside down. Yanina, what's going on here, Fad? How did you suddenly become the chair of this hotel? My parents stared at me in amazement. This time, their tone was no longer arrogant, but filled with a mix of caution and respect. I remained calm and cold as I said I should thank you for kicking me out of the house. If not for that, you would have bled me dry. I might have foolishly shared my wealth with them if they hadn't been so heartless in throwing me out. Given their greed, they would have found a way to take every last penny of that 100 million chair of this hotel. My parents stared at me in amazement. This time, their tone was no longer arrogant, but filled with a mix of caution and respect. I remained calm and cold as I said I should thank you for kicking me out of the house. If not for that, you would have bled me dry. I might have foolishly shared my wealth with them if they hadn't been so heartless in throwing me out. Given their greed, they would have found a way to take every last penny of that 100 million. If not for their cold benheartedness, I might have been drained dry by them and eventually discarded. Their cruelty pushed me to become self-consorient. Oh, Nina, if this hotel is yours, why didn't you tell us earlier? Greta now approached me with a disingenuous smile. Look at the misunderstanding we had just now. If you had told us you were the chair, we could have happily celebrated my son's 1-month birthday together. James nodded repeatedly. Fiction me, Nina, you kept this a secret too well. Come on, let's just have a nice family gathering today. You don't know how much we've missed you these past 6 months. Who was it just now that said I was disgusting, called me poor, and insisted on kicking me out? And who slapped me and called security to throw me out? Your way of expressing your longing is certainly unique, isn't it? I didn't hold back, tearing off James and Greta's hypocrisy. Seeing this, Seamus quickly tried to mediate. Nina, we are all family. Why are you being so petty? Mullen patted my hand gently and said soothingly, Yes, it was all just a misunderstanding. We were family. After all, blood is thicker than water. James and Greta were just joking. They would in fate have really kicked you out, Don, and be so sensitive. I looked at my pen called family, my voice resolute. Do you not find your words laughable? You claim we are family, but have you ever truly treated me as such? Before I went to prison, when I could make money and bring you benefits, you pretended to get along with me, showering me with your fake affection. But the moment I was released, knowing I might no longer be of any value, you heartlessly kicked me out. Did you ever consider that if I were penniless, I could end up on the streets facing danger, or worse, dying? Maybe you did think about it, but you didn't care. After all, to you, I was just a discarded tool, no longer useful. If something had happened to me, you'd probably have felt relieved, glad to be rid of a burden. And that night was harrowing for me. I couldn't understand it. Even a dog that guards a home for years earned some affection. Why was I worth less than a dog to you? How could you be so cruelly pragmatic? When you kicked me out, you were ruthless. When you see me, you don't hide your disgust. When you hit me, you didn't hold back, all because you thought I was poor. Now that you see I have money, you suddenly change your tune to curry favor with me. You've truly embodied the essence of opportunism. You called me shameless, yet after squeezing every ounce of value out of me, You threw me out without hesitation. Do you have any shame? You said I was disgusting, but compared to me, the daughter who always gave and sacrificed to you are the ones who are disgusting, only knowing how to take. You accuse me of being petty, but who can outdo you all in pettiness? I warned you all a long time ago not to regret it. Now you want to cozy up to me and get on my good side. It reached my level now. I vented all my frustrations and then turned directly to Lucius further out and banned them from entering again. Touch chance, Miss Kessler. Lucius responded respectfully. He then gestured towards James and the rest and said with an icy tone. My parents, James and Greta, looked stunned and then willing to accept it, trying to protest. I turned my back on them, not wanting to waste another glance. The security chief was not holding back and escorted them out, pushing them along. Yanina, what's the meaning of this? Forgot your family now that you have money. I am your mother. How could you do this to us, you ungrateful daughter? We raised you for so many years. Yanina, you ungrateful wretch, you will get what's coming to you. They were unwillingly shoved out, shouting curses as they went. James thought I had changed my mind and immediately stopped cursing, speaking to me with relief. I knew you would be so heartless, Tritty. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. You owed me that. Ignoring their shocked expressions, I turned and walked away with confidence. Since then, I never saw my family again. However, they still call and message me frequently. Why? For money. Either Milani was supposedly sick because of me and needed medical expenses, or the house was too small for my nephew to play in and they wanted me to buy them a bigger one, or my brother wanted a new car and asked me to pay for it. They always found ridiculous reasons to shamelessly ask for money. I just found it laughable. Did they really think I was still the pushover they could exploit? I couldn't understand where they got the nerve when they couldn't get the money. They would send all kinds of insulting messages. I blocked them all one by one. Living alone was peaceful yet busy. Though sometimes lonely without family, I felt at peace most of the time. At least now I only had to take care of myself. Before long the end of the year arrived. It was a time for families to reunite. On Christmas Eve I received a call from an unknown number. As soon as I answered, Mei Linning's voice came through. Nina, we've realized our mistakes. We've wronged you and we are truly sorry. Today's a special day. XMN wants to see you. Can you come back and see us? Just think of it as one last family reunion dinner, okay? Her voice was cautious, filled with humble pleading. I was silent for a moment before replying. Okay, that's wonderful. We'll prepare the meal and wait for you to come home. After hanging up, I stared at my phone, lost in thought. I gathered my things a moment later and returned to the home I hadn't set foot in for a long time. When I knocked on the door, Greta greeted me with a blooming smile. You're back. She affectionately led me to the dining table and cheerfully said, look, we've made all your favorite dishes. I looked around and saw it was true. Sitting around the table, Mullen, Seamus, James, and Greta were all smiling at me. I hesitated for a moment. If only this had been the scene when I was released from prison. But alas, everything had changed too much to go back. Sit down, Nina. I even made you a glass of fresh orange juice, James said, just like he used to, gently pushing me to sit at the table. He then brought out a large glass of orange juice from the kitchen. I used to love this. I would always pester James to make it for me. James handed the juice to me with a smile. See, I remember all your favorites. I smiled politely. Thank you. We are family. There's no need for thanks, he said, waving his hand and then sitting down looking pleased. Come on, eat while it's hot. They kept glancing at me during the meal, their minds clearly elsewhere. I pretended not to notice and ate with them. It was supposed to be a reunion dinner, but the atmosphere was strange. Nina dawned to just eat. Have some orange juice. James specially picked the best oranges for you. Yes, I went to several fruit stores to find the best ones. Try it and see if it hugs sweet. They urged me to drink the juice, looking at me expectantly without blinking. I smiled slightly and took my time sipping the orange juice before them. When they saw me drinking it, their eager anticipation shifted to something more sinister. I furrowed my brows and feigned confusion. This orange juice tastes a bit off. My parents, James and Greta, all visibly relaxed at my words. Their smiles turned genuine, no longer the fake, friendly ones from before. Instead, they were almost manic. Of course it does. I added something special to it. James dropped the pretense and revealed the truth. Something special? What do you mean? I asked. Idiot. It's a poison that will kill you, Greta blurted out, barely able to contain her excitement. The four of them exchanged looks, their eyes gleaming with the thrill of their successful scheme. My expression twisted slightly and I feigned weakness. You want to kill me? That's right, James admitted without hesitation, revealing his true feelings. Why should you keep all that money to yourself and not share a single penny with us? We for family. I begged Eve to have shared your fortune with us. They had shunned me and kicked me out when they thought I was useless, and now they blamed me for not sharing my money with them. They twisted every bit of logic to their advantage, grabbing every benefit they could. 38 Milani glared at me, her voice dripping with resentment. Do you know how much we despise this cold-hearted version of you now? Seamus' face showed displeasure as he said coldly, so you can blame us. We treated you well for so many years. Who would have thought you'd turn out to be such an ingrate? Seeing them self-periously indignant and full of misplaced anger, I realized just how twisted their sense of entitlement had. I looked at them with disappointment. Remaining silent, Greta's eyes gleamed with excitement as she turned to my brother James once. Janina is dead. We'll be rich. Of course we are her immediate family. Once she's gone, all her wealth will be ours, James replied confidently. That's wonderful. I want to buy a villa with a swimming pool, buy all sorts of designer bags, and live like a wealthy socialite that everyone envies. Greta was already dreaming of her future. My parents and James also resumed their smiles, their eyes revealing their utmost excitement. My death seemed to be their greatest wish. My expression grew colder and I said sharply, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. What do you mean by that? They all looked at me, their excitement turned to confusion, and said calmly, Officer Lyon, did you hear that? They just admitted to their crime. As I finished speaking, the tightly closed door suddenly burst open with a loud crash. A large group of police officers stormed in and immediately restrained my family. Amid the shock and confusion of my whole family, I slowly stood up, looking at them coldly. Are you fine? What's going on? At this moment they were all stunned. Their excitement and anticipation vanished utterly. I smirked and said sarcastically, did you really think I was that stupid? After being deceived by you for so many years, do you think I'd ever believe anything you say again? From the moment you called and asked me to come home for a reunion dinner, I knew it was a trap. So just now I ate whatever you ate, and I didn't touch any dishes you didn't touch. I picked up the glass of orange juice. As for this specially prepared orange juice, did you really think I would drink it? I just pretended to swallow.